So hi, today I'll be covering the last chapter of chapter 14, which is 14.3 and 14.4. We'll start with mechanism of movement and locomotion. So you already know what movement is, which is basically the act of moving, whereas locomotion is the movement to get from one place to another. So locomotion is there's an origin and a destination for locomotion. Okay, so while you're watching this, you can also refer to your textbook. It will be page 272 and above. So yeah, so we'll start off with movement of forearm. So in your forearm, as we have covered before, on the antagonistic muscles, you have your extensor and your flexor. For the movement of the forearm, your biceps are called the flexor and your triceps are called your extensor. So if you reach your hand out with your palm upwards, your bicep would be the top of your arm and your tricep is the bottom, right? So there are two movements that you need to know, which is bending of the forearm and straightening of the forearm. So during the bending of the forearm, your biceps contract and your triceps relaxes. And for this part, try bending your forearm and you will see that there is a slight bulge, I guess. I don't think none of you are like swole. So there is just a slight bulge on your biceps and your triceps will feel quite soft. So that is what it means by biceps contracts and triceps relaxes. And then the tendon that you have at your radius, the tendon that you have at your radius transmit a pulling force to the radius itself. So this is produced by the contraction of the forearm, so i.e. your biceps. And then in your textbook, there is a visual of where your radius is and where the tendon that they're talking about is. So it's below the biceps, connected to the radius. Well, so when this happens, the elbow joint bends and the forearm move upwards. Whereas in the straightening of the forearm, the tricep contracts and the biceps relaxes. So when you straighten your arm, you can feel like your biceps is quite soft. There's no there's no much obvious of the biceps bulge, and your triceps feel much more taut or tight. Right? So the contracted tricep muscles transmit force to the ulna by tendons and pulls it down. So this one, the ulna, is sort of the bottom part of the bone in the forearm. So here is where the tendon works for when you are straightening your forearm. So it pulls it down and the forearm straightens. So you need to remember, I put it in red anyway, the two bones that are also involved in this movement of the forearm besides your biceps and triceps, right? So yeah, so moving on to the walking mechanism, your flexor would be your biceps femoris. So your biceps femoris is near your glute. Your glute is your butt. So biceps femoris is the back here, not on your butt, but close to your hamstrings You know where your hamstrings are? When you see videos of people working out, they will how to say, indicate where it is. Unfortunately, there's no proper visual right now. You only see the slides, but yeah, I trust that you will find out and you will know where your hamstrings are, and then you will be able to locate your biceps femoris, which is below that hamstring. And your extensor is your quadriceps femoris. So that's basically your quads. You all know what your quads are. I think you've heard quads, people saying quads a lot, enough to know what they are, right? So in the walking mechanism, it starts off with one of your leg first. So we won't be saying which leg is which. We'll just go with it, right? So your calf muscle contracts and raises the heel. So here, your calf muscle contracts and your heel is raised, right? And then it exerts a forward thrust, pushing the foot against the ground. So there you have it. So biceps femoris contracts and pulls the femur back, bending the knee joint and raising the foot over here. So your biceps femoris of your other leg, right, pulls the femur back, and femur is a bone. I hope y'all remember that. Femur is a bone, it is not a muscle. So it pulls the femur back, bending the knee joint and raising the foot. Then your quadriceps femoris contracts, pulling the femur forward and the leg straighten. And then your tibialis then contracts to lower the heel. So your leg is straightened here, and then your tibialis contracts to lower the heel. Tibialis is near your Achilles heel, near your ankle, right, around the area. So that contracts and lower the heel. And then lastly, as the heel touches the ground, body weight is shifted to the other side, and the whole sequence repeats for the other leg. So you might be confused if the left side, if they're talking about the left side or the right side. Then just refer to your textbook, because on your textbook they will refer which side of the leg they're talking about. On page 273, they will say, is it happening in the right leg or is it happening on the left leg? So yeah, that's basically the walking mechanism. And the walking mechanism, besides biceps femoris and quadriceps femoris, there is also the calf muscles, the involvement of the calf muscles, and then the femur, which is the bone, the knee joint, and then finally your tibialis, right? So yeah, that's the walking mechanism, and we are done with covering human movement. Next would be animals. There are 4 animals. We'll start off with fish. So fishes have myotome muscles. So myotome muscles are W-shaped muscle segments on both sides of the backbone, which are antagonistic. So if the left side is contracting, the right side relaxes, and vice versa. You will see the W shape in your textbook, which is on page 274, right? And then you also have fins, which maintain stability during movement and direction. And you'll know what the fin is, right? This one, I think. Yeah, this one and this one. There are a lot of fins. There are different types of fins, but they all basically just maintain stability during movement and direction. Right, so this is an explanation of what happens during animal movement. So when myotome muscles on the left side contracts, the right side relax, like I said before. and the tail swings to the left towards the direction of the contracted muscles. So it contracts here, the tail swings here, right? And then alternate contractions cause the body and tail to swing to the sides alternately, so side to side. So it pushes the water backwards and sideways. And then the movement of water the movement of the fish muscles on top of the movement of the water moves the fish forward. And that is fish. And now we'll cover the bird. So in bird, they have wings that are called aerofoil. Aerofoil wings generate lift for flying. So you have like a shape, sort of, like that. Literally like that. And then they also have large muscles to facilitate the wings movement. These muscles are located on their chest, which is why you see a lot of birds when they walk, when they're not flying, when they walk, they like sort of mendada, because it is not to show, it's literally their anatomy where the muscles are really large on the chest part. And then lastly, pectoralis major and minor are antagonistic muscles. So this is the large muscles, the pectoralis major and minor. If you've heard of men talking about pecs, and that is what they're talking about, the pectoralis major and minor. So chest, literally. You know those guys who work out where they have really big boobs, quote unquote? Those are the pecs that they have worked out, right? So in birds, it's really simple. It's literally pectoralis major contracts and then the minor relaxes and the wings are pulled down, and vice versa. So when pectoralis major relaxes and pectoralis minor contracts, the wings are pulled up. So it's just up and down. And the air provides up thrust. So this already involves physics. So, cross-curricular thing. So yeah, bird, up and down. That's literally it for birds. Next, we'll go to earthworms. And then for earthworms, their body are segmented where the septa divides the xylem into compartments. And then septa is actually plural. The singular is septum. If you've seen my jewelry on my nose, that is a septum piercing. It goes through that cartilage between your nostrils, right? So that is the segments of earthworms. Each body segment is a separate locomotor unit with its own set of longitudinal and circular muscles. So each of this has singular and circular muscles. So it's a lot of segments, right? And then alternate contractions and relaxations of the muscles result in a wave of peristalsis along the body. So if you've seen videos of, or if you've seen a worm move in real life, basically, that is the peristalsis. Like, it memendek and memanjang as it goes forward, So this is basically the same as the textbook. There's the steps to it. So I won't read it because you will read it anyway when you're reading the book, right? There is no difference. So I just want to say in summary, the locomotion in earthworms is just the contractions and relaxations of the longitudinal and circular muscles to shorten and lengthen its body, and also involves shete, which either anchors or releases the body from the ground or the surface that they are moving on. So yeah, I'll just highlight the things that you need to remember. So you have your posterior, and then you have your circular, posterior chete, and then anterior chete, circular muscles, anterior longitudinal muscles, and then anterior chete and posterior chete. Yeah, so those are the different parts. It's not too hard, I believe. Yeah, you just need to understand where those muscles are. It is shown on page 275 on your textbook. And posterior and anterior. Posterior means the back, anterior means the front. So you know that TikTok song, posterior, anterior thingy? They're talking about boobs and butts, basically. Yeah, so I think that would help you to remember, I hope. It definitely helped me anyway, so yeah. And lastly, we'll go to grasshopper. And in grasshopper, they have muscular and long hind legs. So this is the hind legs, right? Front leg, this one lah. Hind leg, this one lah. Which are adapted for jumping and leaping. And the femur and tibia are connected by two antagonistic muscles, where the flexor bends the joint and the extensor straightens the joint. So when we were talking about grasshopper, right? You know that grasshopper has an exoskeleton. So why is there a femur and tibia? This is, even though they don't have bones, because of the position of the exoskeleton, I guess, yeah, the exoskeleton itself, they are also known as femur and tibia, just to make things familiar when you're trying to learn the anatomy. Yeah, they might have different names when you go into the study of animals, of grasshopper itself. But at your level, since you are already familiar with human skeleton, they use this to talk about the grasshopper's exoskeleton. Okay, so moving on to that, the movement of the grasshopper. At rest, we have the hind leg contracting and then pulling the legs towards the body. I don't understand why I have so many messages coming in, like, so weird. Anyway, so yeah, at rest, the hind leg contracts and pulling the leg towards the body. So this is resting. This is a grasshopper resting and is ready to jump. And when they jump, the extensor contracts. So the tibia extends and the hind leg is straightened backwards. You can see this in your textbook, page 276. That is the jumping, during the jump. And the catapult-like ejection of the hind legs projects the body forward and upward. And those are the locomotion in animals, for animals, right? And that's basically 14.3. So now we'll move on to 14.4, which is health issues related to human musculoskeletal system. I will not be talking a lot on this because what you have in your textbook is enough reading, I think. So if you have any questions, if you want more specific things, basically, you can ask me, because these are also sort of my niche, I guess, because it involves nutrition, right? So disorders, our first disorder would be osteoporosis. So in the name itself, it already says porosis, which means porous, so lots of holes, right? So normal bone would look like this, And someone with osteoporosis, their bones will look like this. Their bones are porous. So the bones would be quite brittle. Senang patah. Senang patah, I guess lah. Senang patah, senang pecah. That sort of thing. So for osteoporosis, it is a bone disorder characterized by weak bones that may break easily. That's your definition, and you just remember that one if they ask for a definition, right? So this is a lot to do with calcium, phosphorus, and vitamin D, and also thyroid levels as well. Even if it's not mentioned here, it is also, the thyroid also involve it, because hormones, as we have covered before, hormones have a lot to do with, thyroid has a lot to do with hormones, with its secretion and when and where to secrete it, right? So in osteoporosis, the estrogen is the hormone, the estrogen is the important hormone that is, that helps in terms of preventing osteoporosis. But because when females reach menopause, their estrogen level decrease, so osteoporosis is sort of macam looming behind, that kind of thing, right? So calcium metabolism has a lot to do with this disorder. Next would be osteomalacia. Osteomalacia is a soft bone condition. So this is also the same thing in terms of nutrition, the lack of calcium, phosphorus, and vitamin D. So when bones are soft, especially when it is happening in children, especially when they stand up, all that pressure of standing bends the leg like this, which is called rickets. So rickets is the bowing of the legs. Macam bend lah. Yeah, soft bones. And next would be arthritis. So arthritis, I think you can see from this X-ray right here, there's a small bend but a bit of a kembang around the joints here, as you can see. And in your textbook, there is a severe case of arthritis where the joint has really bent a lot. Over here, it's not so severe yet, it's just a bit of bending. So it is caused by decreased synovial fluid and the wear and tear of the cartilage in certain joints. So if you've revised and study well, all of this will make sense because all of this is connected to chapter 12 and chapter 13, right? Mm-hmm. So my advice to you is when you are revising, and you are able to revise macam lama-lama, these chapters are interconnected, which will enable you to see the bigger picture in the end and makes you understand the whole condition or the whole situation better. Right. And lastly, scoliosis. I think y'all know what scoliosis is. There is suddenly a trend on TikTok that one time where I see people were showing their backs, the people with scoliosis, and they're like showing before and after surgery. A bit bleak, but it was funny as well because why would you do this on TikTok, right? But anyway, scoliosis is the bent of the backbone. It is usually caused by a genetic factor. So it is not caused by nutrition. Yeah. The other three, this has a lot to do with nutrition, except for scoliosis. So yeah. Yeah, read up on it. And then lastly, practices to maintain healthy musculoskeletal musculoskeletal system. So you have the four main ones, which is on page 279. Good body posture, proper attire, and exercise, mainly on your mobility training and strength training. Cardio just actually cardio is not really great if you are talking about your musculoskeletal system. It's literally in the name. It's called cardio. It's a cardiovascular with the heart, you know. In terms of training and in terms of nutrition and healthy body, 30 minutes to 45 minutes of cardio is enough. If you go more than that, you are losing your muscle mass, and you might even, membuang masa, basically, because it will not do any good for you. Instead, it will be actually bad for you. It will strain the heart too much and the lungs as well, because your oxygen capacity is being strained. Right, so that's the end of it. I think for these practices, it is pretty obvious what you need to do. And I was about to discuss what is wrong in this meal if we were doing a live class, but we won't talk about that. You don't want to see me right now. But this is actually not balanced, and I'll just tell you anyway. I wish I could get answers from you guys. But anyway, the answer is that this diet is lacking in proper protein, which is either beans for vegans, vegetarians, eggs for lacto-vegetarians, ovo-vegetarians, and fish for pescatarians, and chicken for carnivores, i.e. most of us, right? So this is not actually that complete. The reason why I put it here was for discussion, but since this is just a pre-recorded one, I'm telling you the answer. So that's the end of 14.3 and 14.4. I hope you guys watched this to completion. If you made it to the end, thank you so much. So yes, thank you. Hopefully this will be a bit of help. If you have any question, just ask me on Telegram, or if you want to be more professional, practice your professionalism, you can ask through email and or Google Classroom. Thank you.